Going to be going over the Ethereum price action, which has been very stable for the past week or so. But with news finally dropping yesterday that the ETFs have gone live, yesterday being the first day of the new Ethereum ETFs, I do believe that it's finally time to start looking at this asset again. So I'm going to start off here with just some simple technicals. And then a bit of my bias for where I think this can end up, I guess, over the course of the next few months as we go into the next phase of this bull run. So Ethereum's been kind of forgotten lately. Against Bitcoin, it's been underperforming consistently. Every time the Bitcoin's been getting a move up, the ETH-BTC pair has been dropping. Every time the Bitcoin seems to get a correction, the ETH-BTC pair starts to rise, and it just creates this price action, which is just incredibly sideways. It's been literally the same price since the 15th of July. For almost a couple of weeks now. Yes, of course, it did have a nice bounce after taking out the range lows, the same as what Bitcoin did, but it's been very stable and not a lot has been going on here. Now, I have started to scale into both spot and leveraged Ethereum positions from the monthly open, and I think this is a really important level to be aware of and to be looking at because it's just been consistently holding as support for quite a while now. And with these new ETFs having launched, I do think that this could act as a really nice base for a move higher. So I'm going to start off here and we're just going to zoom out a little bit. So what Ethereum's done so far this year basically was a move up to take out those 2022 highs, and then we've just been holding below that yearly level. Okay, so that January the 1st, 2022, it's just the previous two quarterly candles. The move up to the 2022 high, you close below, you try it again, you close below. And then what we've seen subsequent to that is a sweep of the previous quarter lows. Okay, now all of this has happened within the first month of the quarter. In fact, the first few days of the quarter, okay, July being the start of this new quarterly candle. And already we've had that big move down that was since the open, a move down of almost 20% to take out those previous quarter lows to come into a big gap that we have on the monthly and the weekly timeframes. And then we're starting to see what has the potential as a really strong reversal candle if it can hold here. Now, obviously, there's quite a lot more time. There's 2 months and 7 days, of course, left within this candle. But if we are going to see a strong monthly close with the ETH ETF hype, we've seen with Bitcoin, okay, when the ETFs launched, it had this little bit of a correction, but then moved 50% higher from that point. So if we're going to look at some similar kind of performance from Ethereum, that does take it on to new highs. Yeah, that takes us up to the $5,000 area, which is a 50% move from where the ETFs launched. So I am feeling very bullish overall on Ethereum, and it's been relatively easy to start to get positioned into these trades. Now, the problem that we have, and I think the problem that we have that a lot of traders are facing, is because it's just been stuck in the middle of this range. Okay, no matter how you draw this range, we're right at the midpoint. All right, whether you're taking this high, the first time we swept those highs from over here, and you're coming down to your range lows, we're right in the middle. And of course, again, if you're going to take this latter part of the range, we're just holding that midpoint of the range. Then, once again, if you put a fixed range volume profile on it, we're right at that POC. So a very similar situation to with Bitcoin is it's just in the middle of the range, at the point of control, and it's just completely within balance, very stable. You put an anchored VWAP on from when it drops into this range here. And once again, you can see that it's just very stable here. Now, I do consider this because I have a bias that we're going to be moving higher, I'm happy to bid in this area. And if we do start to lose this 3,400 zone, okay, where you've got the midpoint of this range, where you're holding within this previous consolidation, I see this as a capitulation, you've recovered it. What we're seeing with a lot of stuff lately is the kind of pattern that looks a little bit like this, and we're already seeing some assets starting to mark up from that price. And Ethereum's a similar kind of situation, right? Where you have the big sweep, you then recover it, and you would be looking for that move higher afterwards. So for myself, I have been bidding around about that monthly open. Okay, so you can see on Monday, you tested the monthly open, held, tested the monthly open, held. You've just been consistently testing that monthly open and holding. And really, unless this is going to drop quite significantly, you're looking at a move down to around about 3,300, 3,200 as the next levels of support here. Then as long as this is holding, then I do remain kind of quite bullish and looking for higher. So I've been buying some spot, and I've also been starting to add a bit of a leverage position, small margin. But the thing is, when you're looking at a move higher, you can be adding margin 2-3x small margin on this without too much. I just don't see there being too much risk of major downside unless Bitcoin starts to massively pull back as well, and unless the ETH BTC pair starts to really crash, which is also at very, very strong support here. So when you look at the chart, okay, it's a difficult one to trade. It is chopping a lot of people up because there's a lot of impatience building here, but it's holding value. It's holding that POC. It's holding around about the midpoint of the range after having had a quite strong recovery. And that does lead me to believe that we are going to be seeing higher prices. Now, if we start to look at targets for this, okay, obviously you'll be looking at a new all-time high. Okay, I think it is inevitable. If we do start to move up from here, you're going to be making a new all-time high. I think it's as simple as that. I don't see anything really. Okay, there's 4,200. You get the 420 meme kind of thing playing out once again. That could be a little bit of a pit stop. But unless we see something significant and Bitcoin pushes up, then I would be looking for new all-time highs up towards that $5,000 level. When you zoom out a little bit more, you can start to place some targets for higher also. It's one of those things. It's popular to be an ETH bear right now, but I don't see it being profitable to be an ETH bear. Okay, we have targets higher. I am expecting it to be going higher. So if we're looking at a one-to-one from our previous cycle lows down here in March 2020 to the all-time highs and back down to those FTX lows, right? Then we come up with a nice little target here of around about 5,650. Something else that we can do to find some levels in which to trade, go for a macro fib pull. Of course, we did come up to that 786, rejected around there, but the fact that we're holding within here and not seeing a big rejection lower, I would say once again is bullish. And you start to build a bit of confluence here as well. We've got that 1.272 that comes in at 5,900. But then the big targets, this is what you really, really look for, is up towards that 1.618 and up towards the 1 over here. What we've seen previously from Ethereum is it's extended far beyond that, but you did have a rejection from the 1.618 early on. When you go back from here to here, okay, you can see price came up into these areas where we're likely to find some temporary resistance. It did pull back somewhat, got a bit of a correction, and then pushed way beyond that and started to extend way beyond that. The other thing that you can start to look at for these targets is the logarithmic. Put it onto log scale. Okay. And you can look at essentially what's happened previously, which is not a whole lot. You're somewhere between that 1.272 and the 1.618. If you ended up around the 1.15 maybe, or the 1.5, it topped out kind of in a bit of a random place in terms of fibs. But yeah, this gives you some other targets, but they start to extend really, really far beyond where price is right now. So looking at these macro bull targets for Ethereum, probably a little bit unlikely, but something that we can be aware of. Anyway, I'm not going to do too much more on this. Let's go over onto the ETH BTC pair. Another reason why I'm feeling fairly bullish on Ethereum right now is we've been in this range, okay, for a very, very long time. All right, Ethereum made new all-time highs in the last cycle, but in comparison to Bitcoin, it did almost nothing. And it's just been in this long sideways accumulation for more than a cycle now. You had a little bit of a move up towards the end of the previous bull run, but it did nothing in comparison to what it had done previously. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see that hype again. Okay, Ethereum in 2016, 2017 was very new. It did what I would say Solana is doing now, where maybe Solana's done this first run, and towards the end of the next bull run, Solana gets a new high, potentially against BTC. But I do believe that we're a very strong support here for seeing a leg higher that can take it to around about that 0.1 Bitcoin mark. So for every Bitcoin, it's 10 Ethereum. And I am looking at that as an overall plan here. And for myself, I am buying and bidding Ethereum every time it comes down into this support area around about that 0.5 to 0.52, looking for it essentially to be a 100% move from that 0.5 to 0.05, sorry, to 0.1. That's the kind of trade against Bitcoin that I am looking at. So I am looking for Ethereum to basically outperform Bitcoin by 100%, right? A 2x over Bitcoin over the course of the next cycle. Now, locally, it's been also quite nice to trade because you can take these short positions as well, all right? Because it keeps on having these impulses up. You put in these little top formations with a trend line, and then you drop straight back down into these same support areas. And you've just been having this impulse, consolidate, a bit of a distribution. You drop back down, you bounce again, you drop back down, you bounce again, you drop back down. So if I'm a whale here, and if I'm looking at getting big positions, I wouldn't say it's manipulation, it's just standard price action, but you're getting really clear opportunities of when to rotate into ETH, rotate out of ETH, and just start to build this position slowly, ready for what I do believe is going to be a flood of capital that comes into this asset very soon. So we've seen the latest time that it's come back down into this support area, taking out some lows. It's seen a strong bounce. We're getting a bit of a corrective move, similar to what we've had previously after these strong bounces. But then once again, we would be looking for a bit of continuation. Maybe it drops back down to that level again. Okay, so as long as we're holding around here, I am very happy to continue to buy and to just to buy Ethereum and to start to scale into that long position. So from a USD perspective, like I would just repeat again, looking at this monthly open as support, as we come into the end of the month, that starts to get very interesting. From an ETH BTC perspective, looking at buying every time Ethereum comes down towards this 0.05 area. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to bounce straight away from here. That 0.05 is right at the bottom of this box. It would be really nice if it can, like, let's say Bitcoin gets a bit of a move up and the ETH pair drops down, if it can continue to do this for a little bit longer. But we have a higher time frame perspective on this because simply you have to. You can't trade this on the lower time frames. There's absolutely nothing going on. But on the higher time frames, I think there's a lot of data that we can look at. I'll just quickly touch upon this. With the ETH ETFs yesterday, it was overall a day of very big inflows. Okay, over $1 billion traded on Ethereum yesterday with the new spot ETF. Now, it was only ETH that saw outflows, and of course, that being similar to GBTC, we're going to see that for quite some time. But all of these other ETFs seeing a lot of interest here. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that develops and whether the inflows can continue to outpace what we're likely to see from the outflows of ETH, at least momentarily, very similar to what we saw on Bitcoin with that there. From a fundamental perspective, I think I'm quite bullish on Ethereum as well. We've got, of course, got all the layer 2s and everything there on ETH. Now, remember, crypto's all just code. Like, the whole thing, a lot of times when an argument is made for Solana over Ethereum, it's things like the fees, things like the speed of transactions. All of those things can be solved very quickly with code on Ethereum. It's just they're not for a reason. And I believe that helps to lock value into the chain itself. So with Solana, okay, what we've seen from Ethereum on its first cycle is when it was a very, very new asset, it had an incredibly fast move up and then it crashed by a lot, right? And of course, we saw that a similar situation in the last bear market, but it wasn't anywhere near as much as the move down that ETH had after its first full cycle, when it came all the way back down to that wave one support, which would have essentially been Ethereum seeing another 50% drop from the last cycle highs. You start to stabilize and it starts to get more value locked into the chain for more of a gradual move up, like we're seeing with Bitcoin. Okay, smaller percentage gains on each cycle that it has, but also slightly smaller corrections as well. And yeah, from a fundamental perspective, I think that's just the chain maturing. And a lot of the problems that I have with the likes of Solana is because fees are so cheap, because transactions can take place so quickly, it's likely going to have issues when bear market hits, whether we've seen a top from Solana already, but when bear market hits, it's going to get hit almost the worst because there's no incentive to keep that value locked in yet on the Solana ecosystem. So a lot of these arguments of why people would choose Solana over Ethereum are fine in a bull market, okay? And it does mean that it's likely to outperform in a bull market, but it also means it's going to get crushed a lot harder in the bear market when that does eventually happen. So you look for an asset that just has a bit more resilience about it and so on. That's just going into a bit more of an opinion there. But overall, I think fundamentals, technicals, ETFs now being alive do present a pretty good catalyst for a decent markup on Ethereum. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be something that happens steady, and then you get a big break towards the end of this cycle. But I do believe that general overperformance against Bitcoin as we go through the latter stages of this cycle, we'll be lucky if we still have another 12 months of bull market left. Maybe it's only about 6 months left of it. So we're looking for this latter stage to be slight outperformance from Ethereum against Bitcoin. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. And that is everything that I have to say in this video. So thank you very much for watching. Please do give this video a like if you have enjoyed it. And I will be doing more Ethereum content and other analysis on other altcoins and all of that kind of thing in subsequent videos. And of course, do remember, I do go live every day, every morning, every weekday morning on YouTube. So make sure you hit subscribe, hit that bell, hit the like, do all of those things. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Bye-bye.